quick trigger warning before I start this video is that it's gonna contain mention of self-harm. It's not gonna be anything exceptionally graphic or anything, but there may also be some images that may not be suited for certain audiences, but I'm gonna warn you over here if I'm about to, well, throw one in here. Now let's start. I've decided to completely throw a script that took me a week out the window and make this as simple to understand as possible. So we've definitely made huge progress in mental health awareness, and it's great that people in the public eye are open about their struggles and, well, tell people that it's okay not to be okay, that the solution is to get help, that you're not weak for getting help, that it's completely human. However, there are also others who may not share that opinion for whatever bizarre reason, and social media has given them a platform to share what they think is the right thing to do if you're struggling mentally. And maybe also make a few bucks out of that. So what has happened is that a band that I used to like, I'm not gonna name them, I'm gonna name them the Voldemorts for this video because I don't want them to get A, any publicity, or B, any hate actually. I just want to use them as an example. What they post to their story is this image. Other bands have custom picks. How about custom blades? How about a custom no? Yeah, that was all the fans and everybody seeing this had to go off of for about a day. Naturally, people assumed just from that wording that they were talking about actual blades. There was a massive backlash, people saying that this is just wrong, this is disgusting and you shouldn't be doing that. It took them nearly a day to respond to all of this, and their response was a load of bullshit. A bunch of people actually were able to predict what they were gonna say before they even responded, and they were perfectly accurate. They're so predictable. They said that it was a design for a necklace or a charm or whatever, and sure, that may be true, or it may be backpedaling after the massive backlash, but well, if it is true, then it would have been so easy to just go on and say, hey, sorry for the miscommunication, we've worded it a bit awkwardly, our intention wasn't clear to you, obviously, we didn't mean to actually sell razor blades, sorry for that. And that would have been perfectly fine. In that case I wouldn't have had an issue. What they did instead is hide behind, oh, it's a metaphor, which is what people were saying they were gonna do, and they did exactly that. There's a reason why people thought that the Voldemorts were gonna sell razor blades, actual ones, and that's because, well, amongst other things, they've branded themselves word for word as depressive and suicidal, which, go ahead. And, well, it's not just to be edgy, it's just that their frontman actually has a bit of an issue, a bit of a mental issue, which is fine. People have those. However, he's open about it in a much different way than most people would be, because he openly posts pictures of his self-harm. At least one that people were freaked out about, and that a lot of people who I talked to about this sent me and said that they were kind of, you know, taken aback by that. And this was kind of defended by fans as, oh, it's not cuts, it's just scratches, and it's still wounds on his chest, it's still open bleeding wounds. Self-harm is self-harm if you're using a blade or if you're using your goddamn fingernails. It would be self-harm if you used a carrot as well. And that's why people thought, oh, they might have gone a step further. But the Voldemorts are not the only ones doing this. For example, there's another band that shall not be named, who their front man cuts himself on stage and posts photos of fresh self-harm scars. The frontman of the Voldemorts did the exact same thing, shortly after the initial response was out on his personal Instagram. Which this post, I haven't screenshotted it, I have screenshotted the text because that image made me sick. It was a picture of his wrist covered in blood-soaked bandages, as well as, well, a bit of blood on his hand. I'm usually not triggered by this kind of stuff, and I'm not usually easily grossed out, but that one actually made me sick, and, well, thankfully it was reported and taken down. In that post, by the way, he also admitted to cutting on stage, just like the other band that I just critiqued. I thought that other band was extreme, but well, they do too. Okay, well, bye world, where's the delete button? Another thing some bands do that I'm not gonna call any specific one out for is using imagery of self-harm in music videos for the aesthetic. I'm not gonna get into texts, not gonna get into lyrics at all, because lyrics are always up to interpretation. You can look at any song and essentially make it say whatever you want just by interpreting. I know, because I do that all the time. That's kind of a lame hobby I have. So I wouldn't actually, for example, critique Chop Suey by System of a Down or any other song that's very kind of down, kind of negative, very like that emits kind of this feeling of hopelessness, because that's art, and that's something that this band hides behind a lot. And they will continue to hide behind, oh, it's a metaphor. No, it would be a metaphor if you were using fake blood, if you were using, I don't know, imagery resembling this. A popular one I found on cutting is like the flower thing, like the flowers coming out of the arms or whatever. So I'm completely fine with bands depicting this sort of stuff and making it the topic of a song, of an album. I'm completely fine as long as they themselves, in their private life, as somebody people look up to. If you want it or not, people do look up to you. Show their lifestyle, and essentially by showing that they self-harm, promote it. And that is what you're doing, whether you want to or not. So it's not an issue with your actual art, it's the issue with you showing a vulnerable audience that clearly cares about you because they follow you, and that's the only way they're gonna see this, and they follow you because they care. A picture of your wrist wrapped in bloody bandages, pictures of your scratched open chest, and it's just something that you do, it's something that you're normalizing. You may be pushing those people to doing the same thing. In their response they said, oh, if you think people are just gonna cut because of us, then you'll have to think about what's going on in their lives. Well, sure, they may have issues, but you're ultimately pushing them to doing it. It's you! I'm laughing because I can't understand how people can be so ignorant. Also, he openly admitted to romanticizing certain topics and to cutting on stage as an expression of his art. Generally, as far as I know, it's kind of considered off limits to actually mutilate your own body for art. If you were just covering yourself in liters upon liters of fake blood, do it. I don't care. But that's dangerous, and it will inspire people to do the same thing. Especially kids, because kids want to be like their idols, and I know because I was like that. Thankfully, I had good idols. I had very good influences in terms of music, for example, very good role models. However, your role model, if you want to be or not, even if your band claims to not exist to save people, you have responsibility. And either you're gonna put a trigger warning of some sort on your page, an explicit one, or you're gonna stop that. Those are two options. And also, just in the context of what he stands for, he's protesting a bunch of stuff, and I'm completely behind the idea that he's going against certain ideas that the society he lives in still holds. If you see this self-harm as a sort of protest. This method is like trying to win a war by blowing up your own bases. And you're just recruiting more and more people to blow up their bases as well. Because you're an influencer. You're not just destroying yourself, you're also leading people to destroy themselves. Just summing the entire thing up, you have free speech. You should have free speech. You should have the option to do this. However, you also have a responsibility because you're in the public eye. And if you know that you're doing something that is bad for some people, that may ruin people's lives, that may end people's lives, if you want to admit it or not, that's what you're doing. And there is an easy fix, like a trigger warning somewhere, an explicit one, then, and you just decide to not fix anything and continue doing this thing that you've been critiqued for over and over. What does that make you? And even if you're trying to hide behind, oh, this band is not here to save people, well, does your band exist to push people over the edge and make them kill themselves, potentially? As I said, the problem doesn't lie in your art. Your art is completely separate from this. You can do whatever you want in your music videos, considering what I've said earlier. If you're personally promoting something that's harmful and you're the person promoting it, you're the person people look up to, and this is your private life, you promote this as something, or you show this as something that you do in your private life, some people are going to try and imitate you. They want to be like you, and that's just the reality of it. I don't care what you do in your art space. I care what you do on the personal influence level and the influencer level, because essentially, sure, you're more of a traditional celebrity because you're in a band, but the way you manage your social media, you're an influencer as well. You're an influencer, you influence people, and you want that, you want to be that without having the responsibility, and that's not how this works. You're going to be called out, you're going to be criticized, and you're digging your own grave here. You can't really win this because more and more people are going to realize that this is not okay. I'm not trying to censor you. You should be as open as you want to be, but with power comes responsibility. You have power. You are someone that people know. For the people who still have not understood anything, you have power, you have a responsibility. You can decide to not live up to that responsibility. However, that makes you a pretty shitty person, in my opinion, because you know you have the power to influence people to do bad things, and you choose to do the thing without any warning that may lead people to do a bad thing. And that's just neglectful, in the very least. That's probably the nicest thing I can say about this. And before I get myself deeper into this, and before I get more rambly and ranty, I hope this kind of summed everything up. I hope this brought my point across as clearly as possible. It's kind of a clusterfuck everything, but now that I just look like a shadow, I'm gonna sign off, and if there needs to be a follow-up, there will be. As the frontman himself said, he's not doing this for you. He's not doing it for himself either, because if he was doing it for himself, he wouldn't share it. He wouldn't have to share it. He's doing this to achieve a certain image, to, I don't know, look a certain way, and he's also making money off of it. So yeah, maybe reevaluate your moral system. Be kind to each other, and bye. The shadow person has to give some credit to people who have really helped me in this. First of all, Thank you to the people who I've talked to. You've been great, and if you want to read a absolutely flawless comment that I saw on the response post, pause now. Thank you so much to that person for letting me put this in this video. I didn't want to just read it off, I wanted to give credit to this person specifically. And because it was the best reasoning I've seen, by far. Then also thank you to Rukius here on Instagram, who has helped me a great deal with all of this. And then lastly, thank you to my dear friend who has provided me with the background music for this video. She's also started YouTube now and she'll be uploading more music, which I'm very excited about. So even though I have absolutely no reach on YouTube whatsoever, go and follow her. Definitely subscribe. It will be worth it. And yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Be kind to everybody and take care of yourselves and those around you. Second time I say bye now. I need to get my life together.